Yep. Mic check 1 2 1 2. uh
Hey, hi everybody. Maxim from
yes.
Cap.
Hey Max, hello. Yeah. I see what most of our guests is here, and we can start. And yeah, once again, hello everyone, and welcome to the first of 4 sessions Global Transport Innovation Contest. My name is Andrew Asichuk. I'm a partner at Run Global, and I'll be your host for these sessions. So let's dive into our whole program, and I will briefly try to describe what's going to happen here and what's the main reason why we are all here. So, yeah, the main aim of this event is to connect industry leaders and experts from around the world to discuss and share ideas for the future transportation. We try to connect really important and noticeable players in this field. And our contest will be included 2 parts. In the first part, in our meeting, of course, and the first part will be a discussion session where we discuss with experts and representatives of technology hubs on the prospects and challenges in transport innovation, and of course, searching for opportunities for cooperation, mutual technology transfer, and investment with our participants. In the second part, will be a pitch session of startups in field of transport technologies. We try to cover a whole world, but we decided to focus on developing markets and 4 key topics. It's mobility as a service. It's our today's topic, autonomous transport and V2X, consumer services in public transport, and finally alternative transport, energy, and public transport. So it's really trendy topic and interesting for nowadays. It's our program. As I said, there will be 4 discussion sessions and finally huge pitch session, which will include 30 startup speeches from 10 countries and more than 10 corporates. And I would like to briefly describe and say about our main partner. It's F-Team, a corporate VC and innovative platform focusing on transport and mobility seed stage ventures. F-Team has been working since 2020 and establishing collaboration with public transportation ecosystem in Africa, Middle East, and Central Asia. They have more than 25 corporates VC and partners, 15 public transport agency ready to test pilot projects, and that is really important for us. And 1,500 transportation and mobility startups in the worldwide community. So what's going on today? Today we will be discussing about mobility as a service. We want to find the ways to make it more efficient, more accessible, and more environmental friendly. We need to come up with innovative solution what can help us more move forward and more sustainable future. That's why I'm so excited to hear from our experts about the latest advancement in micromobility and everything related to that in your countries and your area of experience. And as I said, additionally, we will be hearing from 5 latest stage startups who are addressing these their issues. they will be presenting their ideas and solutions to problem of improving public transport. So I'm looking forward to a lively and engaging discussion, and I'm sure we will learn a lot from each other. So let me briefly introduce to our experts and guests. I will start with our guest from Israel, Guy Zbarsky. He's a venture partner and the author and founder of Grooming. Yeah, the next expert is Srinivas Madhavan. Sorry, man, it's really challenges for me to pronounce Indian name, but hopefully I pronounce correctly. Yeah, cool. He's a founder and the CEO at the Indian company Express. So next, our expert is a founding partner and Contribution Capital at Contribution Capital, Igor Abramov. And the next one, our expert is Global Innovation Manager at CHV Energy, Navid Ardakianian. And I hope you're here and listen to us. So, and finally, our moderator who will run our discussion will be Ivan Asol. He is a senior analyst at F-Team. Ivan, give you the mic to you. So take this discussion.
Yes, Andrei, thank you very much. Yes, let I introduce myself. As Andrei said, I'm head of venture analytics department at F-Team, Future Transportation Innovation Mobility Venture Fund. As Andrei said, as an investment fund, we're focusing on startups in post-Soviet Union region, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, in mobility segment. We have already 2 years experience in working with this kind of startups. So today, I think we are going to have an informal discussion with a maximum value for audience. And I will remind that the audience today consists of venture investors, urban executives, and heads of departments over the world. So let's share them insights and inspire for great things. So, of course, I have a couple of questions for every expert, and it will be great if you will raise your hand in Zoom and just add something for you. It will make our discussion more valuable. So now I see that we have an Guy Zbarsky today with us. Yes. And hello. So let's start with you and with your expertise in Israel mobility market. So as we know, you have great expertise, and my question about the MaaS trends in Israel. So how it is going, and what are the key disruptions now there?
Well, we have actually a lot of innovations in the domain of micromobility and mobility overall. So I don't know, maybe you can focus me what I want to basically hear about.
We can focus on mobility as a service innovations, because our discussion today is about this theme and everything about it. Yes.
Well, mobility as a service, you know, Get is basically Israeli startup, and if I'm not mistaken, it's pretty popular in Russia, right? Get taxi.
Get, yes, but it doesn't work now in Russia, unfortunately. But yes, it was a very famous startup.
Okay, I'm less familiar with that, but it's an Israeli startup in the domain of micromobility. But basically, we see a couple of trends. The major trends that we see nowadays is electric vehicles. different electric vehicles, and that happens this very moment. More and more electric cars are being sold. That's number one. We have a couple of interesting developments in terms of air mobility. Maybe you have heard about Air. That's the name of the startup, Air. They're creating a very, very small semi-drone, semi-plane, and basically aims to take 1 or 2 persons from one location to another easily and quickly. And it's going pretty, basically, they're in pretty advanced stage already in terms of development. What else do we have? Obviously different types of scooters, vehicles, other stuff, different types, a lot of different types of radars, lidar, radar, radio, non-radio, connectivity, cars that are talking to each other, basically traffic that is rerouted automatically, and the traffic that is talking to cars. We have a lot of innovation about that, like, you know, all those smart semaphores and other stuff. What else? Yeah, we also we basically also experience some innovation in terms of car infotainment, which means basically we do believe that sooner or later, hopefully sooner than later, we will have self-driving cars, autonomous vehicles. And the moment we are using autonomous vehicles, you have to entertain people in the car. So you can see a lot of different developments in that regard, different, you know, cinemas, internal cinemas, and other stuff. That's roughly, briefly it. But basically, once again, if you want to generalize, it's first of all electric cars. Second, autonomous vehicles, and third, cars as a service. Okay, those are the major trends. It's going one after another. So according to our beliefs, 20 years from now, no one will own a car. Okay, first everyone will switch to electric car, then basically everyone will switch to autonomous vehicle, self-driving car, and then basically people will stop owning cars, and they will just, you know, using Get will order one and take them to any location. And the next step obviously is basically flying cars. So that's the trend we see, and many different developments, as mentioned, radars, infotainment, smart semaphores, and so on. That's roughly it. If you want to focus me on something, I can elaborate.
Great. And maybe something more about connectivity cases in Israel, because in team where we think that it is the most comprehensive segment, because it organizes the autonomous vehicle and car as a service, which you mentioned. So maybe some last cases of connectivity projects in Israel.
When you say connectivity, you mean like a car connected to the cloud?
Car connected to everything, V2X and V2I, V2V.
Once again, we do have 5G advancing, which should support connected cars. All the standard stuff like IoT connectivity, you probably know Telit and other companies that basically connect smart devices to the cloud. So in that regard, I would say it's commodity. It's not innovation. Like connecting car, it's obvious. What is innovative is, once again, different radars, lidar, and different technologies, how cars basically communicate with each other, and how they transfer information and share information between each other, and so on. This is more innovative. But just if you're saying about, you know, like 5G, LTE, narrow band, and other types of connectivity, we have it all, and it basically works, and it's commodity. It's not considered to be innovation in Israel.
Okay, it is true that in Israel maybe it is not an innovation, but maybe in other countries they're also in starting point in connectivity. So yes, we know that you have a lot of startups in lidar, radars, in these kind of commodities for autonomous vehicles. So as a venture partner, question for you. What is your expectations from mobility startups in your country and in just in the world?
Well, depends. Look, when you're talking about mobility startups, I would say that there are a couple of types, okay? Because we can speak about, let's call it deep tech mobility. Okay, again, the guys that are researching and developing new radars. It's complicated, it's deep tech. And then you obviously expect that the guys not knowing what they're doing, that you have team of very savvy professors and knowledgeable people. This is basically what should be expected if it's a deep tech mobility startup. And then you have different platform, like software startups, right? Per car per demand and other stuff, which is also, you have quite a bunch of them. From those you expect, once again, from those you expect to move fast. Okay, because in those cases, you want to see traction. In those cases, you want to see that they're growing rapidly. You want to see that what they're doing is really needed. And you want, in all cases, I would say, of mobility startups, the most important part is redundancy. Okay, and what I mean by redundancy is the following. Nobody knows exactly when the cars will start flying. Nobody knows exactly when the cars become fully autonomous. Okay, nobody knows exactly when people will stop buying cars and will switch to this order, paper demand model. And because nobody knows that, you expect redundancy from startup in terms of, many startups, they are saying, okay, so in 2025, all people will move to autonomous vehicle. And what if not? What if it will happen in 2027? Or what if it will happen in 2030? Okay, so you want those startups to be able to live and to keep developing and to keep basically working, even if the expected date of the launch of the technology is not really that day that have been expected. Because we have seen a lot of, we have seen a lot of startups earlier, like in 2015, saying, you know what, in 2020, all cars will be fully electric. But it's not what happened. We have electric cars, but it's only like, I don't know, 10%, 15% of the market. And many of those companies died because they have expected it in 2020, and since basically the switch has not happened in 2020, many of those startups just died. Okay, but it will happen in 2025. So you expect from mobility startups to be redundant in terms of when the new technology will be launched, because they're really working with new technologies and they really depend on the market, what happens in the market and on the market trends. And if something will not happen on time, you expect them to keep living and keep working and keep developing till something happens.
Yeah, great. I agree with you. And yes, maybe some segments from Israel and the maybe unicorn cases, because we know about India. There is now the trend of electric micro mobility in electric mopeds and scooters. Maybe some unicorn segments in your country.
You mean examples?
Yes, no, just segments of startups. So the technological areas of their products that usually become
if you mean not related to micromobility,
related to just mobility.
Once again, unicorns. Look, when you're saying segments of unicorns, you don't have many unicorns usually, right? It's you have like quite a bunch of them. Yeah. So, for example, we have Get, as mentioned. I don't know exactly the valuation nowadays, but it is a unicorn, and I know that the valuation was like a couple of billions a while ago. And then, basically, once again, you have the Air, as mentioned, this flying car, which is roughly about 1 billion. Well, once again, I have to open my books. I don't remember exactly like many examples of
Okay.
micromobility or mobility unicorns specifically in the market, but it's a fruitful ground here, and we have many of those, and yeah, like it's pretty popular, I would say, domain.
Okay, it was great. Thank you very much. We will just go to another speaker, Orly Sol. So yes, he's unfortunately not with us today, so we're going to our speaker from India, Navid Ardakanian. So you have an expertise in energetics and in working with innovation and corporate innovations. So as an expert at energy innovation field, I have a question about mobility segments of innovations in Southeast Asia. So what kind of them you see now?
Hi, hello to everyone, all the other amazing people here. Just to clarify, I work at SHV Energy, and I am based in the Netherlands. I'm based in Amsterdam, and our company is a Dutch company. And yes, we do have very prominent presence in Southeast Asia. And in South America, and in Europe, and in North America, and in China. So we are everywhere with the company with different names. So that's just to clarify. So I cannot necessarily talk exactly about Southeast Asia right now, but as a part of my role as the global open innovation manager, I focus on open innovation, working with startups and making startup collaborations. And my focus is mostly on sustainability, on logistics, because our company is a very large energy distribution company. So we do a lot of logistics, not in micromobility, but mostly in, I would say, transportation of goods, and in this case, energy carriers. So that's what we are doing. And in that sense, if you want to look at it in that world, unfortunately, one of the things that we don't see much innovation and much new products coming out is actually this specific segment of transportation, but for trucks, for heavy industries, for transportation of dangerous goods. We're still everywhere in the world, even in the most advanced countries, we're still relying heavily on diesel trucks. We're still heavily relying on the older technologies. And these are huge industries. I still wonder sometimes why there is not much focus on these, because a lot of the emissions, if we even want to take a look at the sustainability side of things, a lot of the emissions that we are now dealing worldwide with is because of these industries, is because of the ships that move around and move gas around and move oil around, is because of the trucks that move around that are heavy, that use an extreme amounts of diesel to move. But we don't see much innovations coming out. We are working with some new technology providers, some startups from actually around the world, to come up with solutions for these, but still to this moment we are not seeing any disruptive innovations. I saw a guy talking about very nice future step-by-step plans that, okay, this is how micromobility or mobility will look like in the future. That's not how it looks like for at least for the transportation segment, let's call it, for a heavy transportation segment.
Okay, thank you. And maybe some examples and the way how you're working with startups in clean energy technologies direction.
Definitely. So in terms of also sustainability and transportation, for example, it might sound extremely simple and extremely not a very disruptive idea, but we believe it is. We're working with a Dutch startup company that they're putting solar panels on top of trucks. It's that easy. It's that simple. But it's extremely effective. Just by putting, you have this space on top of all the trucks, the 18-wheelers, the lorries that are going around the world. That is unused space, and these guys are putting solar panels, and they're reducing fuel consumption. Diesel consumption by anything between 5 to 20%, depending on what you're moving around. So that's a very simple innovation. It's simple on paper. Implementation is, of course, extremely complex because they need to follow the rules and regulations and make sure that the product is safe to be used on all types of trucks. And that's what we are working together with them for transporting energy goods. We're working with other companies that are, for example, they're working on technologies that can retrofit trucks with technologies that can basically enable them to be hybrid trucks, diesel, and not necessarily diesel and electric, but diesel and other fuels that are low carbon fuels. So that's another type of kind of focus of technologies that we're now working with different startups on.
Okay, and how do you see the scaling of these products in the markets? Is it possible to see how it is just implementing in every car, for example, solar panels?
Yeah, I mean, it is something that will happen. Unfortunately, I don't know if you know, for example, the company Lightyear, which is the leading company in the world in producing solar panels, solar panel powered cars. Also based out of Netherlands, and unfortunately, these guys a couple of days ago, like last week, they announced bankruptcy, which is extremely unfortunate. The reason behind that is that the technology probably is still not fully there in terms of its cost, its efficiency. Doesn't really make sense yet, but it's growing extremely fast. So I personally see these technologies to be adapted pretty quickly in every type of mobility, in every type of transport that's going forward. But again, for the heavy transport industry, unfortunately, the adoption is going to be slower. And I think that's where we need startups. We need new technologies. We need new ideas. We need people to come up with ways to reduce, because again, that's a huge amount of emissions that we're just forgetting. We keep thinking about scooters. We keep thinking about solar panel powered cars, but we're not thinking about how do we reduce what is actually emitting a lot of basically CO2. So yeah.
So here is very important to have a venture funds also who can help them to stay and then not become a bankrupt, as Lightyear you said.
Definitely.
And maybe yes, you said about the solar panels and maybe other examples of technologies in the clean energy and the clean logistics.
Yes, so I just for myself to understand correctly. So you mean would you like to know more startup examples or more technologies, or because I didn't understand your question correctly, I think.
Yes, just more, I think, startups examples for our audience to understand what is now important in this segment, in energy segment.
No, definitely. So again, we are working also with a range of these kind of companies, so software and hardware. I can also give you, as I said, so solar panels is one, retrofittable technologies that you can fit on any type of truck or any type of vehicle per se, that can enable those vehicles to consume low carbon fuels or even carbon positive fuels. Right now, there are a lot of fuels that you can use that by using them, you reduce carbon, not only that you don't emit carbon. So that those are technologies that companies like ours, I'm not saying we are developing them, we are developing non-fossil, very low carbon fuels, yes, but I know that there are other companies developing carbon positive fuels. So enabling older cars, enabling older trucks to consume those kind of technologies, I think is extremely important. We are working with a startup, for example, that they're out of Switzerland. They are making these retrofittable kits for trucks, for diesel engines, for any type of diesel engine that can use up to 80% RDME. RDME is recycled DME, is basically a clean source of energy that is a liquid form, which is an extremely low carbon fuel. So you can use that kind of fuel on any kind of truck, and that's huge. That's extremely big. But also we're working also with software companies. So it's also important to understand that driving behavior in mobility also defines how much energy you're using. So, you know, the slower you drive, the more careful you drive, you're using less energy. So we are working also with a couple of startups from, for example, Portugal, from Brazil, that they have software platforms that train, again, truck drivers, for example, on the go as they're driving and delivering their products on how to drive more sustainable. So they reduce the emissions. So again, also mobility on one side is also these kind of things. So yeah, the technologies, the hardware technologies that enable new mobility kind of solutions is one thing, and software technologies that actually enable us to make better decisions about our mobility choices and down to the way we drive is also another side that we should always take a look at.
Okay, Navid, thank you very much. I think it will be very important for our startups and to create new products or to make their products better. So now we can move to our another guest, Srinivas from India. So Srinivas, you have a lot of expertise in deeper local logistics and smart cities. So we know that this is a very popular segment in India. So I can ask you about the mobility in India and how it looks like now.
Yeah, so I'm Srinivas, founder of Express. We are into last yard deliveries. We deliver across gated community locations. We deliver e-commerce parcels. That's what we do. In 2023, the projections are that we'll be hitting around 10 billion e-commerce parcel deliveries will be fulfilled in India. So there is a kind of volume that we are currently handling across all the startups as well as new age logistic companies. We had an issue with Google Map locations, finding the addresses, which we took a decade, but now all the startups have this ease of finding the address that is solved at scale. And now we are moving to autonomous robots to deliver parcels across all these locations. So we have we have built up an autonomous delivery robot wherein we feed the parcels onto the robot. This goes and delivers inside this gated communities where we have 500,000 apartments, and we also deliver across corporate offices like Microsoft, all of these offices where employees are working, and these robots go and attempt to deliver the parcels. That is what we have been working on. And with respect to other things that we are doing, we are also building a surveillance robot which monitors this controlled premises continuously instead of depending on manpower.
Okay, and maybe you can suggest some for foreign startups, startup founders, before they penetrate their product in Indian markets. So what are the key advices, because the Indian market is very specific for most of the startups. So it will be great to hear from you some advices.
Yeah, and I would add some additional question about, we know what you are deep in the last mile delivery, and interesting from your point of view, what is the main challenges with integration, micromobility, and delivery as a B2B service?
So micromobility and delivery, they both go hand in hand. There is a company called Yulu based out of Bangalore, which has solved this micromobility for delivery companies at scale. So delivery executives in Bangalore, they use this micro mobility startups, electric EV bike startups like Zip. There is one company called ZYPP Zip. which is also helping delivery executives to deliver using EVs across the city. Usually zipping through the city traffic is quite difficult, and on an average, it adds up to 230 grams of carbon emissions per delivery in India. And usage of this EVs is, at scale will certainly reduce the carbon emissions is what we feel.
Sure. Thanks for your opinion. It's interesting because India, it's a really huge market, and it's interesting how it works here there. And especially, like your opinion in last mile delivery, it is interesting how micromobility can implement in this part of the market. Sure, cool. So it was interesting, and thanks everyone what share your experience and thoughts about present and future of micromobility. And before we start our pitch session, I would like to briefly remind the easy rules. So 5 minutes for presentation and 5 minutes for Q&A. So let's move on the pitch session, and our first startups is Phoenix.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Jaideep.
Happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. Let me share my screen.
You can start.
Okay, so we're Phoenix. We are an integrated electric mobility platform for passengers and deliveries, led by the shared e-scooter, which we use for customer acquisition organically. And then we cross-sell to other passenger mobility products, which are different vehicle types and different business models. So other shared vehicles that you drive yourself, also subscription vehicles, hardware as a service, even hailed vehicles, all connected with public transit. The idea being for every ride, you can choose what's the best way to get there. We then leverage these resources and capabilities for last mile deliveries, which we are now putting even more attention on in this year. We're headquartered in Dubai, so you can see in the skyline building for the Greater Middle East. That means, yes, integrating with the transport networks and also localizing payments so we can service all the segments in our communities. So this is kind of just another view of what I was talking about on the title slide, where we started with shared mobility. We're the market leader in shared e-scooters. We're live in 5 countries: UAE, Saudi, Qatar, Bahrain, and Turkey. And then we call it Phoenix Ride. We also cross-sell these users to subscription scooters, done a pilot in taxi hailing. And now we're spending a bit more time on Express, which is our package delivery service. And it's supported by common financial infrastructure. So a local wallet we call Phoenix Pay, which is integrated with many telecom operators and alternative payment channels, and then a common rewards program. So the more you spend on one, the more you save on everything. So as an ecosystem. So the founders, we worked with a few super apps in the past, Grab, Careem, and others. We learned a lot building the technology at Careem, and I've incorporated those lessons into Phoenix, which is orchestrated to be a multi-vertical architecture, a bunch of shared services on the platform layer, and then vertical specific services. Of course, this is on the consumer side. Traction to date, so it's been 2 years. We've done 5 million of gross revenue. We've been profitable on a segment basis for 7 months out of those 24 months, and a few months in a row now. Over 200,000 paying users. Talk about the regional footprint, which is diversified now in multiple cities and countries. We've done 2 acquisitions. We have this regulatory moat or regulatory capture as well. with licenses from cities and exclusive communities. These are some of these partners. I don't know if you're familiar with the region. So Nakheel, for example, built Palm Island. That's one of our exclusive communities. We're the only micromobility operator there. We also work very closely with all the transport agencies. We've helped create the regulations in this region and shape the regulations. So the list view, everything in blue is exclusive. I think what we're just trying to highlight is it's very difficult to replicate, and this is in a big way part of our moat and the intrinsic value for a trade sale in the future. Now, looking forward, we're also getting into package deliveries, so not just moving people, but also moving deliveries. Moving packages using our electric first fleets, multimodal, even small vehicles, mid-sized vehicles, and larger vehicles, and with synergies with our existing consumer business, giving us a great cost advantage and technology edge. It's an example of the agent super app or driver super app. The idea being the single agent in his zone will have multiple verticals in his queue, whether it is moving people, doing a quick package delivery, or a backlog of less urgent tasks like battery swapping and fleet rebalancing. So we can soak up all that idle capacity. We've done a pilot in ride hailing, massive market, we know it well, need for competition. There's a monopoly in our region with Uber acquiring Careem. Very experienced founder team. IQ and I, we've worked in 3 mobility companies together. It's our second that we're co-founders in. I also had many years in the Valley before that. And it's a big market. When we say Greater Middle East, it's a very fragmented footprint. That's a feature, not a bug. It's what creates a high cost of entry for a global player to come in. It's what requires a regional champion who has full attention and focus to unlock, capture, and penetrate. Very similar to what we saw in Southeast Asia. And I also was with Grab there. So that's the highlights. We've raised $12 million to date, $5 million in the seed round, $7 million in safe notes. And we are open for another mill on the safe, and then planning our Series A next quarter. So I'll stop right here for questions.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, let's start ask questions if anyone has. Cool. There is no questions.
I can ask one quick question.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed the innovation part, but if I understand correctly, what is the innovation like in your startup?
So we are the only, I guess, multimodal, multi-business model platform in our geography, right? Yes, a lot of these products have existed in other countries, but they've not been here and they've not been in one platform, right? Part of our, I guess, innovation is localization, right? Which we spend a lot on payments, tech, and also on market access or regulatory capture. And that's part of, it's more of a commercial piece, but it's their focus and attention. And then having the multi-vertical stack, giving us a lot of cost synergies and revenue synergies. So we're not the first to do that. There are other companies that have leveraged micromobility as the optimal customer acquisition vehicle to cross-sell to other services. So Bolt has done this in Europe, scooters to cross-sell to ride hail and food delivery. Yandex has done this even in Israel and Russia, of course, and others have. So learning from some of the experiences, the successes in other geographies.
Your innovation is basically localization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Navid, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you very much for your presentation, JD. Very interesting. Honestly, not specifically my area of expertise, but I have a question that's just it's interesting for me to know your point of view on, because with the recent things that happened, I think with Line, if I'm not wrong, with their plans to go public and everything, and the general I would say shift in investors' view on specifically the scooter, the micro-mobility, the electric bike sharing, the scooter sharing kind of model in the cities that started it first and now going a bit more mature into the system, and they're now putting more regulations on it, making it tighter. Do you see that also happening in your region? And if yes, how are you planning to counter it so things that happen to companies like Dot, like Tier, like Lime don't end up happening with you, Phoenix?
Yeah, I mean, I think all cities, as they are adapting to this new form of mobility, and they're doing it at their own pace, right, are now coming to grips with, you know, how do they want it to work in their city, and there'll be more infrastructure created. Like in Dubai, you know, they move quite slow, but now they are doing a citywide rollout and really integrating it into a multimodal transport network. So not just building new cycle lanes, even taking space away from cars, making slow speed streets, shared streets. Like we're adding the public transit card as a payment method. So you get off the metro and you ride the scooter. But like our view is, you know, the shared e-scooters, I mean, that's just one product, and it's not really an exponential product, it's a linear product, because, you know, cities are not allowing you to increase your fleet exponentially. They're doing it as step function. And there's a cap, I mean, that is growing over time. So we view it more as, you know, a great way to get stickiness, to get customers on, concentrated in an urban cluster, and drive like engagement with those users, right? So that we can sell other things to them. One other piece is, of course, you know, the unit economics are quite important with an asset-heavy business. And so I spent a lot of time in China when I was with Grab, learned a lot from what went wrong, bike share. And then there was, you know, there's a rebirth, and it's very big in China. And that's what made us choose the Gulf and Middle East, because it's the only region that has high purchasing power with low labor costs. Normally they're all correlated, right? Purchasing power and labor costs go hand in hand. And here in the Gulf, it's the inverse. And that's what gives you, like in food delivery, this is the most profitable market in the world. And one of the only profitable markets in the world, mind you. So we're able to run the scooter business, you know, profitably, even with limited scale. But, you know, for us, that's just how we get the customers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jaideep. So let's next. Our startups is Lula. Elani, if you're here, you can switch on your camera and presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, let me just share my deck with you guys. One sec.
Yes.
All right, all set. So, Andrew, are you guys keeping time, or should I just wing it?
Yeah, 5 minutes for you, and you can start.
Okay, cool. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Velani Mweni, co-founder and CEO here at Lula. We're in the middle of a pre-Series A round, 2.9. Series A round raising $2.9 million with about 2.3 already done. So if you're ready to cut some checks, we'd love 600K for people in the community. Now, as you know, the continent of Africa is heating up quite rapidly. In fact, by 2025, we'll have more than 100 cities with more than 1 million people. We don't have the infrastructure to move people from A to B, especially with the growing population. Now, as we unpack those problems, that typically involves high congestion and high CO2 emissions, with the cost of owning a car rapidly increasing. And if someone decides to leave their car at home and make use of public transit, that's typically insufficient, unreliable, and has very limited operating times. And this is where businesses then step in and decide to provide a service or give a subsidy to employees to help them get around. In many cases, usual shuttle providers are either too small with scale, lack digital technology, and typically do not have the capacity to serve multiple users at a time. Ultimately, what this leads to is transportation being inefficient and boring and lacks the transparency. And that's where Lula steps in. So we're a platform that's connecting companies and their employees to a network of private shuttles to take them from home to work and beyond, really freeing up time, saving money, and the planet. We typically would partner with third-party vehicle owners who plug their vans into the platform and get matched with bookings from businesses on a daily basis on a door-to-door pickup schedule. Currently, we have just over 800 vehicles and counting, specializing in high-capacity vehicles, so 6-seaters up to 22-seaters, but also have a decent fleet of luxury vehicles to help people move around, especially senior management and executives across businesses. Our primary business model is B2B, where we take a 25% commission, and companies either sign up for a fixed-term contract or month-to-month subscriptions. We had a B2B2C play earlier before COVID, but due to some of the costs of that, we kind of paused that until further notice. Quick high level on traction, as I mentioned, over 800 vehicles on the platform, an average growth rate year on year of about 4.8x, live in 5 cities across South Africa, over 220 businesses served, gross margin sitting between 25 and 40% with over 300,000 rides completed and over 900,000 tons of CO2 avoided. Now, customers typically use Lula in a multitude of ways. It's not just commuting home to work and back, but also when businesses book rides for their customers or their employees to take trips away, or if you're an executive who has multiple meetings throughout the day, you can book a Lula for the whole day to take you around. And we're available 24/7. We're really trusted by over 200 businesses across South Africa, the likes of Yasser, Yoko, Luno, Alan Gray, Air Liquide, Roche Pharmaceuticals, to name a few. And as mentioned, really live across 5 cities in South Africa at the moment. Ultimately, we're addressing a $5 billion total addressable market with a specific emphasis on the 18,000 medium-sized businesses who have to provide some sort of transport subsidy or service to their employees. And by medium, we're talking 50 to 300 employees with an emphasis on African markets, and a bit of Asia as we scale over time. Now, there are a number of competitors in the market, but Lula really differentiates itself on 5 key factors. The first is flat pricing, so we do not surge any time of day. Secondly, we specialize in high capacity vehicles. And when businesses book rides on a daily basis, they get matched to a recurring driver as part of our mission to create sustainable income. And ultimately, we always believe when you book a Lula, you ride with people you can trust, with your colleagues, your students, or your friends. So companies who book rides, let's say F-Tim booked a ride for their staff, they wouldn't ride with people from Phoenix or Zelo or wherever. It would always be door-to-door pickups for your company. Our team is a team of 33. I have the privilege of leading as CEO, having started 2 businesses prior. I'm an entrepreneur for 10 years. Yusra, head of people, experience for 8 years. Musha, head of ops, 15 years. Joel, our head of engineering, 10 years. Abiso, my co-founder, 12 years, who also started a business prior to this. As mentioned, we've raised a number of rounds, and we're in the middle of a pre-series A. We bootstrapped for a while, went through startup bootcamp in 2018, and raised a seed round in 2019, 2021, which had the likes of Launch Africa and Total participating. Currently at $2.3 million out of the 2.9 using a safe note. So happy to have a conversation afterwards. Ultimately, from this raise, we're looking to expand and dig deeper into South Africa and expand beyond just our pure commuting offering, so we can drive to profitability and ultimately reach the priced Series A round within 18 months. For us, we want to win the market and win their hearts. So when businesses think of moving their people, they mustn't say order a bunch of Ubers and try get reimbursed. They just say book on the platform of Lula and it will all be sorted. That means key hires, faster acquisition, faster development, and faster product development. Ultimately, okay. Oh, is that 1 minute?
Yeah, you can finish this slide and we started asking.
Yeah, so this is my last slide. So yeah, that means getting to 600K monthly recurring, 3,000 daily rides, add 200 new businesses, and reduce 3,000 tons of carbon dioxide. So FTIM and the team, I really invite you to join our journey as we power the developing world to economic prosperity and a zero carbon future. Thank you.
Cool.
Questions,
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, impressive results. So yeah, if anyone has a questions, you can just switch on your camera and microphone.
So I have a question, Andrei.
Yes, Ivan, go ahead.
Again, my name is Ivan. I'm from team. So the great industry, the great startup, the great story. And my question is about what kind of key features you have compared to the main player in this segment, USA-based company VIA. So how can you win compared to this startup?
Yeah. So firstly, VIA is two things on VIA. VIA is not active in the South African market. Secondly, VIA has actually pivoted away from B2C type shuttling and really moving towards a platform as a service for mobility agencies. And that's primarily due to the fact that they had heavy subsidizing costs to keep their vehicles afloat and charging a relatively low rate. In our business model, we primarily target B2B on a scheduled basis and an as needs basis. So we do not have to subsidize drivers, neither do they work for us full-time on a lease agreement. It's primarily plug and play. Ultimately for us, we want to be able to connect businesses or other organizations to a network of shuttles who have very low utility anyway. And so those are some of the key reasons why we would fundamentally be better than VIA, despite the fact that they've actually moved their shift from B2C to a B2G over time.
Okay, and what is the most perspective way of business modeling, B2C or B2B? So to some business customers or for just physicians?
Yeah, so I guess it really depends what your end goal is. If you really want to grow fast and have high attrition, you want to choose a B2C model, but that requires a lot of capital in these kind of markets, which is very, very hard. For us, we're really about getting to profitability and bringing a strong competitive mode. So B2B works better, especially because your sales target or your sales strategy is once you're in, a customer typically use multiple services and locked in for a long time, which makes it relatively hard for them to switch. Ultimately for us, our value is about being a reliable, high quality, convenient ride rather than a cheap and fast ride like most ride hailing services are. So our focus really now is B2B, and over time, as we build up more supply, we could double down our B2B2C vertical as employers or employees and businesses typically would like to use a service outside of work hours, whether to go to a football game or to a concert, etc. So for now, it's B2B.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem, Ivan.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I guess it's all questions. Thank you for your pitch.
Sure, Andrew.
Yeah. Let's start. The next speech is Tilt. Yeah,
Awesome.
Deepak here. Yeah, cool.
I'll share my
5
screen.
minutes is you can start sharing your presentation. Oh, I see. Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. So at the outset, I think in contrast to most of the other businesses here, we're fairly early stage. So kudos to everybody else. Sounds like you're building amazing businesses. We're not taking on, I think, last mile connectivity. So I know a lot of bike sharing startups in the past have tried to solve you getting from your home to the metro station or back. Instead, I think in the early stages of trying to build this, we figured out that there is a larger problem to solve in just cycling as an industry. So cycling today in India is a $3 billion market. And as far as we're able to tell, it hasn't changed in 200 years. So all bicycles today are bought on retail, which means you have to go to a shop and buy one, or you buy one online. And the $3 billion market today, it consists of people who are willing to buy a bicycle before they build a habit. Whereas there's probably an equivalent number of people who want to get into cycling, but are unwilling to or unable to make an investment into purchasing the asset before they start riding. This problem further compounds if you think about the fact that you need multiple cycles per household. Cycling is typically a group activity, which means you ride with a spouse, partner, friend, maybe your kids. And so buying multiple cycles per household becomes problematic. The second thing that we've learned from putting these bikes in the hands of users is that they struggle with maintenance and storage of bikes. So in India, we have a lot of apartment communities. Earlier, somebody spoke about how they do delivery in apartment communities. It's a fairly large market in India. And if you go to the basement of any of these apartment communities, you will see bikes that have been purchased and never used again after the first 2 or 3 months. This is typically because they can't maintain the bikes. And of course, the third big thing that we figured out is that cycling hasn't changed in 200 years in the sense that technology has not met cycling. So there's no IoT, no gamification, no community, no leaderboards, no rewards, effectively nothing that incentivizes you to get back on the bicycle and keep riding. The way we solve this today, which is sort of what go-to-market is at the moment, is we put shared bikes inside apartment complex communities. It's a fairly simple go-to-market because we have no theft or vandalism. We've never lost a bike to date. People are in these apartment complexes are willing to typically pay more per ride. So the unit economics makes a lot of sense. The infrastructure inside these apartments is good. So it's very cyclable spaces in contrast to city infrastructure in India. And then everything that we do is driven by the app and the product that they end up utilizing. So the app is heavy on challenges, cycling challenges, rewards, milestones. And we partner with a lot of local brands who sort of dole out rewards. We have streak challenges, weekly challenges, weekend challenges. And we've seen that the largest driver of retention, once you buy a bicycle or an electric cycle, or in our case, share a bicycle or electric cycle, is that sense of community and the leaderboards and the rewards that you earn from riding a bike frequently. Today, we have a little over 500 bikes deployed. So like I said, fairly early stage. We're doing 42,000 rides per month. We have 13,000 paying monthly active users. We're in 150 apartment communities, 200 stations in total. So few apartments have more than one station. And we're an operationally profitable company. So more than half our stations are individually operationally profitable. And overall, month of December was a 14% operating margin. Jan should be a lot better. The month has just ended. These are some of the apartments we work with. I don't know if the graph is or the images are visible, but on the right-hand side, those are the 3 cities that we're live in: Bangalore, Pune, and Mumbai. 150 apartments, 200 stations in total. The strategy for us has been to acquire the very best apartments in the very best cities. So these are 3 cities that we've started with. I think the top 10 cities in India should be the obvious market for us to venture into in the next 2 years. We're backed by Y Combinator. We also raised capital from Tata's Incubation, Digital Impact Square, Emerging Ventures, ANIM, which is a scout fund, founders fund. And we have some very exciting angels on board. So we're a fairly young team starting this, which means we've seen a lot of value in having experienced angels join us, folks from Uber, Swiggy, MyGate. So MyGate, for example, is India's largest apartment community app. They have 25,000 apartments within their community. We have a strategic partnership with them and somebody from their team on our cap table. Early tier mobility founders as well, because we learned a lot on how to set up operations and run the business from them. We're currently doing a small round, so 1.2 million in total. Like I said, a year ago, we were in 15 apartment complexes. We ended the year with 150. I'd like to get a 750 apartment complex by the middle of this year. So that's what the capital is primarily for. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. So that's my email address. Please feel free to reach out if you think that you want to participate in the fundraise. We're also doing it on Saves. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for your presentation. Yeah, if you want has anyone questions, feel free to ask. Yes.
Okay, I have one question. In team, we saw recently a case, a startup from Europe, which recycles old bikes and sell it again and use in its own bike sharing. And so I have a question about your clean strategy and the recycling strategy. Maybe some key points in your strategy.
What we're hoping for long term is that people don't buy bikes on retail. It doesn't seem to be an effective way to do the entire thing. So ideally, we should be manufacturing bikes that last a very long time. And a bicycle, compared to most assets, like the previous presenter spoke about cars and vans, that's a fairly tough asset class, but cycles are fairly easy. It's a frame and some parts around it. And usually that can be, it's like a ship of pieces, that can be kept alive for a very long time. So if you manufacture a very good bike, then I think the longevity of the asset should end up defining sustainability for production. I don't know if recycling existing cycles is on the cards for us today. We'd rather have our own bikes. We run spare parts, it's tight ship and easier operations. So prima facie is how I think about it, but I don't think I've spent a lot of time thinking about the alternative for using bikes that people have already bought. So maybe I changed my mind, but at the moment, I don't think intuitively that makes sense.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, Navid, go ahead.
Deepak, thank you very much for your presentation. I think what you're doing is actually very nice. But I have a question, because you mentioned the app side of things and the challenges and everything. I definitely see the value in the bike sharing itself, and I really like how you decided to enter the market. I cannot say if it is good or bad, because I think it's an extremely local thing. But I feel you have chosen the right way to go forward. But how effective is that app? Like, how much of your customer traction, or how much of it is associated with the app and the challenges? My first initial thought about it is that it might be a distraction for the team, probably, rather than something that brings value. But then, do you have data that supports otherwise, or is it something that has already proven value that it's bringing for the company?
Yeah, the latter. I think I felt very similarly when we started out, and then my co-founder pushed me to sort of give it a go. And then we've seen that weekends, for example, that explicitly have cycling challenges. An example I can give you is, there is another Y Combinator company called Orange Health that we partnered with 2 weekends ago. The offer was 90+ minutes of cycling over the weekend, and you get a discount on your next diagnostics test, right? Something like that. And 50% more people rode that weekend compared to the previous weekend, simply to win that award. I think it may make sense to take a minute to walk through who our riders are and why they're cycling with us. These are typically people who've not ridden a bicycle in 5 years, right? They didn't have, they wanted to get into cycling, but never ended up buying a bicycle because there wasn't conviction in their ability to build the habit. Once they get on a tilt cycle, they typically ride it inside their apartment complex. Since the infrastructure is good, these are safe spaces, not a lot of traffic. They build the habit of the first 3 or 4 rides inside the space and eventually leave the apartment. So then the next 4 or 5 rides take place outside the apartment complex, right? And then is when they sort of say, you know what, I want to get on top of my leaderboard, I want to win rewards, I want to get in challenges, I want to join a cycling group. We have routes on the app. So for example, around your community, what are the 1, 3, 5, 10 kilometer routes that you can take? And what are the leaderboards for those routes, right? So then I think they sort of get deeper into wanting to build that as a habit, and then making that central to how they think about their health and well-being for the day. A lot of our riders initially used to do a morning or an evening walk. So they just sort of go for a walk in the morning or a walk in the evening, chance upon our bicycles, decide to give it a go, and eventually transition into cycling being their activity as opposed to walking. I hope that, today we're very small as a company, so I hope at scale that we're also solving, like, you being able to get from home to work to home, right, with electric cycles, if not cycles, if the distance is further. So I think there are other use cases to solve, but at the moment, it's a very small niche, but we know it's a meaningful problem to solve. So that's where we are at the moment.
Understood. Thank you very much. Very clear.
Hey Deepak, Srinivas here. So I was talking about the gated communities part of it. Thanks for the presentation. I just have one question, which we usually face. Do you pay any rental to the gated communities for putting up your station there?
Yeah, we were lucky enough to watch a few other companies go the rental model and fail. So we've taken an aggressive no rental stance. We position the bikes as a free of cost amenity for the apartment complex. So that's what the sales team says, right? You pay for your gym, you pay for your pool, but you don't pay for the bikes. We give it to you for free. So we give it to your community for free. In return, we do a very small revenue share with the apartment. But in return for the revenue share, the apartment is expected to do active marketing for us. So we do MyGate ads, notice board ads, right, events in the apartment. So we get certain free access to the apartment complex in return for the revenue share. The value for us with this sort of a model and setup is that we don't have to end up spending money on marketing. Like, we don't do Facebook ads, we don't do Google ads, we spend no money marketing the product. Like, we just sort of reach out to the association and they get it through to their residents, and in return they get a small revenue share from the business.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, and the last question, Guy, I saw you have a question. Okay. So yeah, and it was the last question, Deepak. Thanks for your presentation and
Thanks, Andrew.
cool. I would like to thank everyone who joined us today, and I hope you enjoyed this session. We will definitely share the decks with all the participants and see you at the next meeting on. The next meeting will be about autonomous transport and V2X, and we already have amazing startups in this field. So stay on touch and see you on the next meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.